So it's been 3 years since the last album, the first album. What happened?
Yeah, well, I guess it did take a bit of a while. I mean, we were working like straight after we finished the first one on writing the songs and stuff. But you know, we ended up working on the first one for a year after it came out. You know, kind of promo and stuff. And then we started recording the next one, and then we was pretty much done with the recordings and the songs. And we got a phone call from Danger Mouse saying he kind of would like to work on the record, and obviously his schedule meant that we had to wait a little while for that, and then so we had to go over to America and we did a lot more re-recording, and basically we ended up recording the album twice. So that's kind of why it took so long, you know.
But what, you just scrapped all the original takes and started over?
No, I mean we had a bunch of songs. I mean, when you make a record, you don't just do 11 songs. You know, we'd done like 25, 26 songs, and then you know when we started working with Danger Mouse, you know, there was a consultancy between us and him where we kind of talk about what songs he likes, what songs we didn't like, and you know maybe we could try things a different way. And you know we ended up with songs that we ended up going and doing with like an orchestra in America, you know, which we'd done in our own bedrooms prior to, so obviously they kind of got massively upscaled and got a lot grander than we kind of initially had envisaged them, but in a really good way, obviously.
Why did he want to work with you?
Well, he's a very sensible man, obviously. He's clever, he knows his music, you know, and when he meets nice people, he obviously is wanting to work with them. But no, I mean, we have a lot of things in common, actually. You know, there's some ideas about him, you know, about what he might be into, or what, you know, especially from things like the Grey album, which was obviously like a hip-hop thing and a sampling exercise, but he's actually into some very obscure old kind of psychedelic records from like the 60s, and so are we, and I think he heard that in our first album. You know, the first we heard that he was even aware of us was, you know, in NME. He kind of had come out and said like our album was his favourite album of the year. So like we saw that and like, wow, that's cool, because you know we always kind of like what he did as well. But once we got to meet him, we found out that, you know, we did really like a lot of the same records, and we hated a lot of the same records as well. So which I think is always important, to hate the same records.
What records do you hate?
I knew you was going to ask that. I can't possibly say I don't like upsetting people.
Of course you can. It's just for Sweden, this, you know.
Yeah, just for little old Sweden, just for the 10 million of you. Well, you know, without mentioning names of any bands, I mean, we don't like kind of very conservative music, you know. To me, like, a lot of indie alternative music now is almost like it's almost like folk music, in the sense that the structures of the instrumentation and the way that it's presented is so formulaic now that it's been done 1,000,001 times, and you know, there's some good bands working within that, but it's not really of any interest for us to work in that. We want to challenge the kind of instrumentation and the way music sounds and is produced, and also challenge the way that kind of bands are presented, and you know, and you might fail, but at least you will try. You're trying to do something which you think is fresh, at least, you know, rather than just rehashing something, you know, 3 chords that have been played 100 times.
But how do you do that? How do you break those conventions? What's the secret?
I don't know. You just try. You have high standards, you know, in the sense that you know, we'd do a song and like between the 3 of us, or with working with obviously Danger Mouse, the 4 of us, you know, it only takes one person to fire the magic bullet. You know, like you can be working on a song, and if one person says one thing, it's like he shoots the song dead. You know, because we all kind of trust each other's opinions, and if someone says, well, that chord change there sounds like the Zootons, then, you know, that's dead, so the song's dead. You know, so it's just a kind of collective process between, like, all of us, and if we all think it's good, then generally, you know, we can be quite happy that it's okay. Whereas, you know, yeah, because we're all kind of quite harsh about ourselves and other records.
So you left London and you went to LA for 5 weeks to record the album. What was that like?
It was very, very weird, very surreal. I mean, you know, we made our first record and in our bedrooms, and you know, we're very used to the kind of grey, slightly cynical atmosphere of kind of southeast London, and indeed we like that, you know. But going to Los Angeles, and I'd never been before, you know, like you hear all these preconceptions about it's very, you know, non-cynical and a very aspirational place where everyone is like dreaming of like this, that and the other, and obviously everything's very technicolor and bright and tacky and gaudy, and that's all true. So to kind of take us from our environment over here and then put us over there was obviously probably quite an interesting thing for us, because I actually think it probably affected the way that the music turned out as well, because, you know, we didn't have to kind of walk through the streets looking at kind of like indie wannabe poser boys, you know, like in LA, because there weren't that many there, at least none that we see. So we was obviously a bit more chilled out, you know. We didn't get as angry as we normally are walking around over here.
What did you see in the streets of LA then when you walked across the street?
The streets of LA, well, I mean, you just see. Well, I mean, Dave in the band said something very interesting, you know, about how like America is really good at marketing itself, because, you know, before you go to LA, you have this kind of certain conception of that it's kind of like the cutting edge of everything, especially relating to like the entertainment business, and you know, and when you actually get there, you know, even though, as I say, it's very gaudy, there's something very 1970s about America, I find. You know, like you go into the supermarkets and it's like, you know, they haven't changed the displays for like 20 years, or it looks like they haven't. So they do, you know, as you would expect to the Americans, they do a good marketing job on themselves, because there is a lot of things which are kind of quite retro there, you know. But, you know, it's cool. It was good. Great fun.